morning to all my friends out there. I posted something out on Facebook that I'd be starting short little clips on many years of working out in the field with people and wildlife. And it's so important that we share all these memories. I mean, I think it would be unfair not to. But I would prefer to be sitting out in the field, listening to bird calls and under my favorite tree, a leadwood, rather than sitting in a little spot somewhere else off the continent. But just to sort of get the whole sort of background going, I think the area that the area that I love most, and that's very close to my heart, is that whole area from Komatipoort right up to Punta Maria, Pafuri, and towards the east into the Kruger National Park and into Mozambique. And that specifically will be the areas that I'll be talking about in terms of the ecology and many stories. So what I wanted to do today is just lay the foundation of the areas that we're operating in there, that area specifically, and I'm going to be starting off with the geology of that area, so that you understand that we're going to build from the geology. We're going to build up the grasses, the trees, and putting different ecosystems and habitats in there, so that you can understand when we talk about black rhino and white rhino and why we're going to be looking for them in different areas, and give you an idea through these videos, give you a pretty good idea of the sort of area with regards to the landscapes, because landscapes are very important to distribution of wildlife, birds and so forth, and we're talking about a really large area. So today, just shortly, the area that we're looking at is from south to north. If you look at the South African map, it's the whole of the Kruger National Park, and that area specifically, that geology is extremely interesting. It's you've got granites from south to north. You've got basalts, gabbros. You've got sandstones. You've got rhyolites, and then that dictates the vegetations and the vegetation groups, and you've got slate and all of that, sandstones, and by looking at that and being fortunate enough, as I was in the early days in Kruger, I was able to do census and fly in helicopters and fixed wing aircraft, and by looking down on the ground, you were able to determine the geology from the air, just by looking at the different tree types, because you have indicator species of trees that indicates specific types of soils, and then also you have within a habitat, you got indicator species that indicate seaplines. For example, the silver-leaf terminalia, Terminalia sericea, and also the zebrawood. And you could be in one habitat and it could change many times just because of clay, deep sandy soils, and so forth. And so if we go back to granite, granite is a coarse. It breaks down, takes many years to break down. It's a coarse soil, and when it rains, the water just drains through, and all the minerals and nutrients are washed down to the lower lying areas. And so on these granite sort of hills and high lying areas, you're going to have trees, tall trees, because they have to go really deep, and you're going to have tall grasses. And your animals that you're going to be finding there is giraffe and impala and a wide variety, zebra and wildebeest and buffalo and so forth. So there's and elephants move through those areas quite a lot, and so do lions, depending on how thick or how open the area is. I mean, leopard are going to be there, and if it's an open area, normally you're going to find cheetah. but your wildlife, they don't care. They don't really have a problem eating sour felt, because of the acidity in granite. So they are going to be in those areas. And then as you walk down into the valley, if I would say that, where you've got a buildup of your clays, you're going to get into sodic sites. So that is where your grass that was growing on the top, let's say, for example, buffalo grass, Panicum maximum, was growing on the top of that hill, and it's growing at the bottom of this hill. If it's growing on the top, although it's a Panicum maximum, it's going to have a sour quality. It's going to be a sour felt. But if you go down into your low area and Panicum maximum is growing here, it's going to be more palatable because of the minerals and nutrients that were washed down into these areas. And there you're going to find your, you're going to find bushbuck, you're going to find, sable antelope perhaps along these drainage lines. You're going to find, if you have a lot of tamboti, you'll find black rhino and white rhino. And again, leopard will like to use these areas to hunt. And slowly you can separate these geological sort of areas. And then if you go to basalts, it's open plains. The trees are normally stumped through the clay, very, very nutritious felt, large herds of wildebeest and zebra, and predators would obviously be following those animals. And then you go to the gabbros, and then off to the rhyolite, which is actually a good example of rhyolite is the Limbombo Mountains. That's rhyolite. Now, we must remember that rhyolite was is closely associated to granites. Granite was an intrusive rock, so magma solidified many millions of years ago. And if you see these big granite boulders and domes sticking out, that's actually from erosion that's taken place over millions of years. Where rhyolite was an extrusive rock. Extrusive means it was volcanic, so it came to the top of the Earth's surface, and that's where it solidified. So it's pretty interesting. When one understands the geology, you can understand plant life, and then you can start putting animals into different departments. So just in short, guys, that's just to start off. Just putting it out there. I want to paint a picture of the area that we're in. It's beautiful. It belongs to the savanna biome. We've got several biomes in southern Africa, but savanna is probably one of the largest biomes, and it's housing many different species of wild animals, birds, reptiles. It's a rich diversity of these components, and it's something that we have to look after. So I hope you've enjoyed the short talk on where we are and the area that we're going to be talking about. And then I'm going to start from the largest land animal. I'm going to start talking about elephant. My next little episode, we'll talk about elephant in detail and how interesting they are. And then we'll start working down towards the smallest little mammal. And that you need to go and have a study on, which is the smallest mammal in the Kruger National Park. All right, folks, you all have a good day, and take care.